Okay, we have to talk about DMC right fucking now.
Aren't you supposed to be doing Silver's story now?
Later. Right now, I have to talk about this because oh god, oh god, I'm gonna simmer down, and I'm already mad, and I can't help that. But if I openly, verbally annihilate everybody, nobody's gonna hear me, and I'm not gonna get anywhere. And in fact, given my experience with this subject, I'm not going to get anywhere. I never get anywhere, ever. You guys know I don't care for Devil May Cry. I never have, and I probably never will. Apparently, this is just too much to bear for people. Some people, not everyone. Some people, though. The main reason why I can't stand Devil May Cry, really, has been a significant part of the fan base that has done this, but the other bit is that in my review, not only did I go out of my way to make a follow-up video clarifying how I had fucked up on 3, because I did fuck up when I talked about Devil May Cry 3, okay? I missed a very important aspect of the game that I needed to discuss. I didn't talk about the styles, which is a big part of the gameplay, and that was completely my fault, and I totally admitted I was at fault there. But most of the people who bitched at me, the ones who got really nasty about it, were pissed about the first game. And it's funny because if you go back, and I went back to double check just to make sure that I remembered it correctly. While I had a number of complaints with the first game, I went out of my way to point out that a lot of the problems with it had more to do with the fact that it just hasn't aged well than it actually being a bad game. Because back when it was first launched, it wasn't terrible. It was quite fun. Like I said, it hasn't aged well. Even games in its own series have completely excelled at being, you know, 3D hack and slashers compared to the first Devil May Cry. Yes, Devil May Cry was one of the first, if not the first, true, proper, well-done 3D hack and slash, but that doesn't mean it's aged well, alright? But that was really the worst I said about it. The only one of the series that I really went out of my way to slam was 2. And 2 sucks, so fuck you. But despite all that, I still got this.
You are an obnoxious, arrogant little Why does anyone care what the fuck you think? There's a reason you've only got 2,000 views on this vid. It's not the fact that you insult Dante. Sure, I'm a fan of Dante and has mentioned the Sonic fanbase, but it doesn't give you any excuse to insult or base this amazing game. DMC was made before God of War, so shut the fuck up and go do something more productive with your time. Once again, you little
You know, I'm not even gonna warrant that comment with a response, but I just want to clarify that the only reason I censored that word is because I just really don't like that word.
I can't help but mention it, but I don't think I saw him use anything more than the basic 1-2-3 combo. I didn't see him use a launcher or any of the other attacks. Did he even play any of these games more than 5 minutes? He didn't talk about DT mechanics, weapon switching, upgrading, or anything really. Makes me laugh.
Then you didn't watch the entire review at all. I mean, I didn't go out of my way to discuss the different weapons, but I definitely talked about combos and stuff, and yeah.
Dude, the lock-on function is way more effective. You focus on one enemy. There are more moves in this game, but seeing your gameplay, you use a fraction of the combat. You pretty much shoot and slash, no switching guns, weapons, directional inputs. Its combat in DMC 3 and DMC 4 beats every other hack and slash. I won't even include the other failed points. You didn't even play the higher difficulties. It comes down to this: you too casual to understand the complex combat system, especially in DMC 3.
I'm too casual to understand the Oh wow, I'm not even gonna get into the very thought that you're saying that the older Devil May Cry games are way better and superior to every other game in the genre, like Bayonetta or the original Ninja Gaiden or Metal Gear Rising or God of War or the new DMC, for that matter. Yes, I said that.
In your mind's eye lives a memory.
nothing but spit on for disliking a game series. And the only reason I dislike it is because of assholes like you guys. And that's not to say everyone was being a dick to me. I've met DMC fans that have been way more than reasonable about this. But then I've got people. There's a guy. Okay, there is a dude, and I swear to heaven and high hell this is true. There's a guy who has specifically followed me since my first account and bitched about almost every single one of my videos, specifically because I don't like DMC. This person exists, and it is not an isolated incident. I'm starting to wonder if a significant chunk of the Devil May Cry fanbase is completely fucking insane. And the worst part is, this is the same group of people that made me go into the new DMC reboot with an incredibly negative attitude. I heard nothing but bitching about this game. I heard that the combat was way shittier in every conceivable way. I heard that the plot sucked. I heard that the settings sucked. I heard that the new Dante sucked. So I went in expecting something really, really crap, because I'll be up front, I like Devil May Cry 4. And so I was just like expecting the worst here. You know, I was expecting a really shitty reboot that spit on what the original games were, and I played it, and it was fucking awesome!
I will suffer, I will burn, let hate prevail, enslave my soul, but I'll never surrender. I will suffer, I will burn, let hate prevail, enslave my soul, but I'll never surrender.
You're all insane. All of you. All of you. I am the only one who isn't crazy here. Before I get into the actual game mechanics though, I'll talk about the graphics and sound. Now to get this out of the way, I've never actually complained about DMC's sound. At all. The music has always been great in every one of the Devil May Cry games, and this game's no exception. The game's soundtrack is fucking awesome, but I would argue that this game actually handles its music in a little bit of a better manner than the previous DMCs because of one tiny thing. Previous Devil May Cry games had a nasty habit of using the same battle track over and over and over again, and while that was effective for a while, it tended to wear on you by the time you got to the end of the game. Here, there's so many different tracks, and they're used at different points in the game, that it helps keep the combat fresh. It helps keep the sound fresh, so you're never repeatedly hearing the same musical track on a constant basis. It's a small fix, and, you know, it was never a huge problem in the older games, in my opinion, but it's still an improvement that I like to see. In addition, the graphics look fucking awesome, and I really just love the artistic direction of this game. There's a lot of thought and influence that went into making this game look unique, and I really appreciate that about it. It looks like something I would call Devil May Cry. Yeah, it's uniquely styled compared to the previous titles, and I'm not saying the previous titles weren't styled in a nice gothic dark way. I even said in my first review that the original game had a very nice art style. Here's a little bit different, but it's still really fucking good. And it's one of the things that really got me into the game from the get-go. It just is styled so nicely. There's even some surrealism here. You gotta appreciate that. But of course you don't care about any of this. You want to hear what I think about the gameplay, because how is it that someone considers this game superior than all previous Devil May Cry games? And there's a few reasons for that. Now, we're going to really get into combat here, since that's always been Devil May Cry's focus, but I really want to talk about platforming real quick. See, platforming has been a huge problem in Devil May Cry, and you might be saying that, well, hey, Darkness, Devil May Cry's never been a platformer, which, yes, I'd be inclined to agree, if not for the fact that every single previous Devil May Cry game had a significantly bad habit of putting me through occasional platforming segments that just didn't function that well. Precision jumping has never really existed in DMC, and while the controls in 3 and 4 helped remedy this a little bit, the first two games really suffer from this problem. Here though, not only is platforming not a hassle, it's actually fun, which astounded me because that's the last thing I fucking expected. I think it's because they've added this system of chains, where you can either pull yourself to certain spots, or you can pull out platforms to use, and this is an interesting mechanic. I've actually never seen anything really like this in another game, And the thing I love about this system is that it actually carries over into combat. There was one thing about Devil May Cry, all the games, that just drove me up the wall, and that is the combat felt very slow. It could be very clunky sometimes, and while, yes, again, it improved over time in 3 and 4, it still felt really slow. Do me a favor here. Go play Bayonetta, and then jump straight back into Devil May Cry 4, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. But because of this pull system, all of a sudden combat is not slow in any regard, like not even close. Weapon switching is incredibly fast, fluid, it happens within combat. In addition, it's so fucking easy to chain combo. The game doesn't feel clunky at all, in any way. You can chain combos together using multiple weapons with no problem, and if you end up knocking an enemy far away, we'll just pull them back to you or fly straight at them. There's a gap closer in this game, which is fucking amazing, because that means this game is doing something better than every other hack and slash I've ever played. Seriously, this is probably going to sound really small, and it is because I've never complained about it before, even in the older Devil May Cry games. But the one thing that always drove me a little bit nuts in other hack and slash games is that there was never a gap closer. If an enemy got knocked far away, you ended up having to run back to them. It could be kind of difficult. Some games had some remedies to it, like I would say Metal Gear Rising's Ninja Run kind of helped with that, but there's never been something where you can just grab an enemy and fly straight back to them and continue attacking. That's never really happened until this game. And all of a sudden, well, now I can do this. And I can't even begin to describe how fucking useful this is. That is only compelled by the fact that every single weapon is fun as hell to use. The combat is fast, fluid, user-friendly, and again, I'll say it, way fucking better than every previous Devil May Cry game ever. What? Oh, sorry. I was just waiting for the asshole who's down in the comments section right now typing about how wrong I am to finish before I go on. He's probably done... Nah. Another thing they changed about this game that I was kind of worried about at first until I realized that it didn't cause a problem was the one-button dodge roll. If you remember my original review of the first 3 games when I talked about Devil May Cry 2, I pointed out that they added this exact thing in that game and that it caused a lot of fucking problems because all of a sudden combat was on autopilot. All it was a tedious button masher, and there was no reason to strategize because to avoid any attack, all you had to do was hit the fucking button. Here is the same deal, except that it doesn't fucking break the experience. This is because you actually have to time it, unlike before. You can't just mash it and expect to avoid enemy attacks because the enemies will lead. The enemies will read you. The enemies will fucking punch you right in the goddamn face if you try that tactic. It doesn't work. This is good because, let's be realistic, think about every other hack and slash out there. Doesn't every single one of them, with a few exceptions, have a one-button dodge roll of some kind? Bayonetta had that. Ninja Gaiden has a function like that. I mean, it's a dash there, but it's a similar thing. God of War has it. In fact, the only one I can think of that doesn't have it is Rising, and that's only because that game was focused on blocking and parrying, not dodging. And you might be saying that, well, Devil May Cry 3 and 4 had that function. All you had to do was hold down the lock-on button, and you'd be able to roll, and yes, this is true, except for the fact that the roll in Devil May Cry 3 especially was really unreliable. I don't care what you guys say, that thing didn't always work. I'm not sure what the problem was, but it just seemed to only work when it wanted to. After a while, you can kind of get used to it, but it just affected the controls. It didn't feel fluid. It made the combat a little bit more difficult than it should have been. And this is where I'm going to hear this, because I hear this every time I talk about Devil May Cry. One of the comments even pointed it out, if you remember, that, oh, well, you're just too casual to understand the complexity of Devil May Cry, dude. It's just too hard for you. Listen to me, dickwad. If you're sitting there and you're on this elitist tangent because you think that Devil May Cry somehow makes you a better fucking gamer than everyone else because, oh, it's so fucking hard, then you're a moron. The game isn't automatically good because it's difficult, and my issue with the old Devil May Cry games is that a lot of them were needlessly difficult. The challenge was only there because the control was limiting you. Here, the control isn't limiting you, and that is something I appreciate. The game isn't a God mod situation where you can just run in and destroy everything. You have to try, and the game is challenging enough, but it doesn't fucking jit me out of shit because the controls bitched at me. It doesn't feel like I'm fighting the game all the time. And this is necessary evolution. Devil May Cry 3 was better than the first two. I'm not saying that it wasn't good when it came out. It was. Devil May Cry 4, I admit I liked it when I first played it. It's a good game, alright? But this is way fucking better. It's way more user-friendly, and you know what? It is still challenging. I will go out on a limb here and say that it is probably easier than the older Devil May Cry games, but that doesn't make it any worse. And it doesn't make the older ones any better because, oh, they were so much harder. In fact, I don't think any game is magically better because it's harder. I don't play games to get my ass beat all the fucking time, and I'm even playing this game in one of the harder settings because I wanted a challenge. I just don't like a game beating my ass for no reason, and if that somehow makes me a casual gamer, well then I guess I'm a casual fucking gamer. And I'll let you know when I start giving one single solitary fuck. But now I have to talk about the story. Because this was the other thing that everyone kept complaining about. This is the one thing I always heard. Some people were even willing to admit that the gameplay was a lot of fun, but they just couldn't get past New Dante. Because New Dante is apparently way worse than Old Dante, and if I hated Old Dante, then I am gonna really hate New Dante, because he's 10 times the asshole that Old Dante was. Let me be up front with you. I like New Dante. You know, it's funny, the story in this game actually has a part in it that is a very accurate representation of what happens whenever I have to talk to DMC fanboys about this, or I tell them this game is so much better. These are the DMC fanboys. And this is me.
I think you're all mixed up.
But seriously, I like this guy. He's funny. He made me laugh, and yeah, he is kind of a jackass. But he's not obnoxious.
You're not on the list. I am now.
The only people he openly mocks are his enemies, which is the exact thing that Old Dante did.
You can't tell me. I'm 1,200 years old.
You don't look a day over 12,000.
Fuck you.
Honestly, there are a lot more parts of this game where he's more respectable in some regards. He kind of reminds me of Old Dante in Devil May Cry 4, when I didn't find him absolutely insufferable, and he actually got some necessary character development that, you know, gave me some respect for the guy. I know I said before that I despise Old Dante, but the more I think about it, the more I realize, you know, I don't really hate him. And over time, he got to be a pretty good character. But really, I don't understand why everyone hates New Dante so much. For one, they're not that different. And for two, there are plenty of parts in this game where, you know, he seems more human. Like, he seems more like an actual person. He shows he cares. And you know, he's not always a raging asshole. There's more development on him in this one game, when the Old Dante didn't get the same kind of treatment until at least the third one. And I'm not saying that's really Old Dante's fault. It's more an issue with writing than anything. And as for the writing in this game, well, I don't consider it that. And really all I hear are complaints about characters. New Dante, I like him, alright? You can get over it. Kat, I like her too. I thought she was a pretty good character. I heard people call her a Mary Sue. You keep using that phrase. I don't think it means what you think it means. But I'll concede that there are problems when it comes to the rebooted characterization on two particular characters here. One is Virgil, and I totally understand where some fans are coming from on this one. Because this Virgil is definitely different than old Virgil in a lot of real ways. He's, you know, more, like, unlikable, which, you know, is exactly what they were going for, and the writing isn't bad because of that. Like you aren't supposed to like him, but before, like, old Virgil kind of had a sense of honor, and you could kind of, like, damn his actions, but sort of understand him then. Whereas here, he's more of just a fucking dick, and you aren't supposed to like him. And I can see why that reboot might actually annoy old fans. I totally get that one. In addition, I need to talk about Mundus in this game. Because I'm going to be up front here, I think the Mundus in this game is way weaker of a villain than the original Mundus. Because in the first game, Mundus was like this deity almost. he was sort of this overwhelming, daunting force of power that you really couldn't understand the scope of even when you fought him. Whereas here, he's just kind of a guy in a business suit who turns into a giant jelly monster. It just does not have the same effect. I gotta say, does that make him a bad villain in this game? No. The writing in this game is fine. It just means that I think, in terms of being a villain, Mundus was a little weaker in the reboot than he was in the original. It doesn't make the writing shit, though. None of this does. The plot, for the most part, is pretty decent. You know, it's not Shakespeare, but I'm gonna be upfront here. The plot in DMC has never been fucking amazing. Ever. Never. Once. Not in any of the games. The closest it came to being somewhat sensible was in 3 and 4, especially 4. But even 4 made no goddamn sense if you really wrapped your head around it.
I should have been the one to fill your dark soul with light.
The writing in DMC has never been a big part, so to dismiss the entire game because of that is a little stupid. And quite frankly, the more I hear it, the more it occurs to me that I feel like a lot of people just didn't want to like this game. They didn't want to like New Dante. Hell, I'm willing to bet that a lot of people who bitch about this game and say it's bad haven't even played it. And if you've played it and you don't like it and you prefer the old games, well, that's fine. That's, you know, you're perfectly entitled to that decision. But I gotta say, I don't think this game deserves all the hate it's getting. Not anywhere close. I wouldn't say it's better than Bayonetta or Metal Gear Rising, but it's a close third for the top hack and slashes that I've played in recent years. It's damn good. And if you haven't played it, especially if you haven't played it because of all the hate it's gotten, then you need to at least give it a try. You know, it's not fair at all, because a lot of effort and a lot of time went into making this game. And it's a lot of fun if you just give it a chance. It's all I'm asking here. Give the game a chance. I don't think that's unreasonable. And if you're gonna sit there and bitch at me because I said this game is better than the old Devil May Cry's, then I've just got one thing to say to you.
You're an asshole!
This is Darkness, and I bid you all a fond farewell.